10 more reasons to hate clowns. Proficient comedians are extraordinary. In any case, the individuals who imagine or stray outside of the carnival can plant dread. Rebellious jokesters have set off brutal fights, vehicle pursuits and showed up in dreadful manners unannounced. They likewise make things off-kilter for administrators. Representatives would now be able to breathe easy in light of a jokester's quality when called into the supervisor's office to get terminated. 10 They really lurk in the woods. In 2016, the Great Clown Scare hit the United States. Reports began pouring in. Regular citizens over a few states demanded that comedians were attempting to draw youngsters into the forested areas. Photographs showed up on Facebook indicating the alarming hoodlums inclining out behind trees or obtrusively hanging out in the open. Undoubtedly, the majority of the accounts and photographs were phony. This was presumably behind the zero resilience reaction to bogus cases and related activities. Among those captured was a 11-year-old young lady. She had carried a blade to class since she was apprehensive the jokesters planned to get her. A portion of the accounts were not phony at all. Residents from Middlesboro, in Kentucky, announced a jokester gallivanting in the forested areas. The police paid attention to the different sightings and, to be sure, they nailed the animal when he began prowling behind trees almost a structure complex during the early hours of the morning. Once exposed, the 20-year-old Jonathan Martin was accused of abusing a city law expressing that no one is permitted to wear facial covering and cause public alert. He postured for his mugshot in his jokester suit. 9 Clown pranks are expensive and deadly. At the point when the 2016 American jokester alarm arrived at the United Kingdom, it was not beautiful. Aside from the standard distrustful sightings, genuine occurrences terrified people in general. In Gloucester, 6 separate occurrences saw someone being trailed by a blade-conveying jokester. A gathering of school children strolling in County Durham was damaged when a comedian seized them using a cutting edge. A few jokesters pursued a kid in Suffolk. The police treat all comedian-related reports as an evaluation 1 crisis, which means officials must react to each locating an episode. The developing number of comedian tricks isn't simply startling the public, who is now tense from sex-guilty parties, muggers, and rough lawbreakers. Visiting every scene could cost lives. Someone in genuine peril could kick the bucket on the grounds that the police are somewhere else looking for a jokester. Obviously, comedian chasing additionally squanders the officer's fuel, time and assets. 8 Clown makeup defies facial recognition systems. Crazy Clown Posse is a band with lifelong fans. They call themselves Juggalo and paint their faces like comedians. To be reasonable, no one is going around with rainbow twists and red noses. Think more along the lines of goth-looking performers. Undoubtedly, a juggalo's face paint is done with a particular goal in mind, and that is an issue for facial acknowledgement systems. These frameworks are progressively utilized over the world. Enormous tech knows your face and where you go. Dazzling. Should you want namelessness, spreading paint over your face in a juggalo example may help. Evidently, one of their brand names meddles with the framework's capacity to perceive faces, and that is the dull line underneath a juggalo's base lip. This smear fools the innovation into feeling that the jaw is more withdrawn than it truly is. Besides following honest individuals and attacking protection, facial acknowledgement frameworks are sparing lives. They get fear-based oppressors before they can explode bombs. They discover kids labeled with an Amber Alert. In this sense, crooks can abuse the product's shortcoming by utilizing jokester cosmetics to disguise their character. 7 They infiltrated the police by day. Karina Salgado is a cop in Chicago. Be that as it may, on a dim Halloween night in 2019, she transformed into a comedian. An inebriated one. The off-the-clock cop chose to visit another alcoholic foundation and wandered up to a Lakeview East bar. That was the point at which the difficulty started. The staff was not chuffed with permitting a plastered jokester inside. When informed that she was not permitted to enter, the 30-year-old turned out to be problematic to the point that the police were called. They showed up at 1:20 toward the beginning of the day to discover their associate in full uniform, and not the blue kind, actually requesting to be let inside the bar. When the cops attempted to dissuade Salgado, she took a plastered swing at one of them. Tragically for her, the slap associated. Subsequent to hitting her kindred wrongdoing warrior in the face, she was captured for battery, criminal trespass and blocking an official. After an inner examination, Salgado was reassigned to a work area managing people in general via telephone and, for clear reasons, not face to face. 6. They infiltrate our beds. Envision getting back home and there is a comedian in your bed. Not a jokester doll that you left there, but rather a living individual. This individual isn't your better half, spouse or another relative. Only a cracking comedian resting in your bed. This was the situation that stunned the socks off a young person in 2017. The anonymous youngster showed up home in Marlborough, in Vermont. He was scared to discover a comedian dropped in a higher-up room. He called 911 and clarified the circumstance. The police had no trouble capturing the jokester, which ended up being 43-year-old Sean Barber. Aside from having broken into the home and liking one of the family's beds, the comedian was likewise inebriated. In a far better guide to kids wherever who love comedians, the police discovered cocaine in his beautiful suit. Barber was permitted to dry out in a restorative office before being accused of medication ownership and intruding. 5. They caused mass brawls at the point when the Voyage Transport Britannia left to visit Norway's fjords. The arrangement was to give a great deal of enjoyable to the holidaymakers. Rather, what they got was a forceful comedian at the smorgasbord table. He was additionally a traveller and, while prepared in comedian gear, set off difficulty at 2 in the first part of the day inside one of the boat's restaurants. By the time the security arrived, the battle was going all out. Portrayed as a mass fight, a few people were involved in the quarrel and staff was likewise in the main part of things. Notwithstanding, the team was frantically attempting to isolate the exceptionally inebriated members. Travelers utilized plates and furniture as weapons while the remainder of the benefactors fled in dread. At the point when the residue settled, 3 ladies and 3 men had continued genuine wounds. There was blood everywhere. The savagery was energized by liquor and small times despondency at seeing a jokester. Clearly, he had explicitly paid for a journey that didn't permit extravagant dress. The circumstance raised rapidly and gatherings assaulted one another. At the point when the boat moored, the Hampshire police were holding up with binds. 4. They lead police on slow-speed chases. Everyone covertly cherishes viewing a genuine rapid pursuit on the news. Trust jokesters to wreck that. In 2019, a man wearing a hairpiece and cover drove experts on a moderate pursuit through Los Angeles for almost 56 kilometers, 35 miles. The specialists were made aware of a jokester carrying on foolishly and soon they were on his tail. While his accessory drove, maybe we should accuse her, the comedian stood up through the sunroof. There were minutes when he really sat with his feet on the top of the dark car, presumably disturbing the police behind him. The officials followed as far as possible, disapproving of hair while enduring the insult of being demonstrated signals that some deciphered as taunting. You know, the comedian shrugged at the cops, similar to moan. Things like this occur, what can you do? The California Highway Patrol accomplished something. They persistently followed the vehicle and pursued the jokester when he leapt out close to Venice Beach and began running. True to form, when the police got up to speed to him, things were not actually ordinary. A long way from being forceful or apprehensive, the jokester was occupied with covering a beachgoer in the sand. The beachgoer approved of it. His thought process in causing the pursuit stays obscure. 3 clowns on the run. In 1990, Marlene Warren tragically opened her front entryway. Inalienably, there was no genuine motivation to be careful. She lived in a little Florida people group without a putrefying criminal component. Also, remaining at her entryway was a fun-looking jokester holding inflatables. One inflatable demonstrated the picture of Snow White and the other announced "You're the greatest." The comedian shot her in the face. Warren passed on 2 days after the fact, and for almost 30 years, her executioner was on the run. From the beginning, the police speculated that the person, who wore an orange hairpiece and a red nose, didn't run exceptionally far. Actually, they were nearly persuaded that it was a lady named Sheila Keene. In addition to the fact that Keene lived in a similar town, she later wedded the casualty's husband. The issue was an absence of proof. In 2017, be that as it may, DNA follows were adequate to capture Keene. Authorities couldn't demonstrate that the casualty's significant other was engaged with her homicide. However, there was a lot of rationale. Marlene's life coverage was a king's payoff and her passing gave him sole rights to important property. At this point, Michael Warren was at that point in jail for a disconnected offense. However, he seemed to have had an illicit relationship with the executioner jokester, who at that point assumed control over issues, killing Marlene to enhance Warren as a rich future hubby. To support clowns are here people with nervousness issues some of the time discover comfort in help creatures. The development is increasing overall acknowledgement for its positive advantages and furthermore for the frequently abnormal decision of steady buddy, think peacocks and small-scale ponies. One man took bizarre help creatures to an entirely different level. Some chiefs have a hard enough time laying an individual off to their face. In 2019, a New Zealand man made the troublesome second considerably more off-kilter. Realizing that his organization was canning the greater part of the staff, including himself, he brought his help comedian to help him through the harsh meeting. Whoever addressed the anonymous staff member and clarified why the organization was releasing him additionally needed to manage the jokester sitting close by, productively making inflatable creatures. More regrettable, when the excess administrative work was given to the worker, the jokester emulated misery and sobbing. Truly off-kilter. One the Mother's Day killer to the extent comedian dreams go, Kevin LePera had everything. He was a star in the unscripted television show Belgium's Got Talent. The 31-year-old likewise won honors as the best jokester in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. He generously engaged wiped-out children in clinics as specialist Aspirin. Dr. Aspirin loathed his sweetheart's children. The three youngsters didn't coexist with him and this reality prompted the couple's separation. Since the partition was her thought, LePera felt that some vengeance was altogether. He persuaded another comedian, Dietwin the Yodeler, genuine name Dietwin Hegeman, to help murder his ex. To add more brutality to the deed, they held up until Mother's Day. On that critical day in 2018, the two men abducted the kids in their home. Matured somewhere in the range of 12 and 17, they were threatened for quite a long time before being compelled to watch LePera and Hegeman cut their mom to death. The warbling jokester was captured without show, however LePera was an alternate fish. He took shots at police from a structure's housetop, tossed gas canisters and claimed he gave up a few times before he at last did.